Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show the code that I made for the first assignment of Computer Programming 1 practicum, where we are tasked to make a C program that calculates the area and circumference of a circle using the input of a radius. And this is my code. At the very top, I include the library that is needed, includes the standard input-output library to allow the use of functions like printf and scanf. And then after that, I also define a constant, which is pi, something that we need to calculate area and circumference of a circle. Of course, the value is a double, which is 3.14159, and so on. After that, after including library and then defining this constant, I start my main function with declaring uh, variables, more exactly float for radius, area, and circumference. I just wrote it as short. And then I have this while one. So I'm using this to create an infinite loop that will keep running until a valid input is received. And if an invalid input is received, then it will keep looping this statement right here. Let's continue on. Uh, when we start this function, it will print this string, which is enter the radius of the circle. It will show in the terminal or console, and then we can input a number of the radius, for example, 7, 10, or even 10.5, because we're using float, we can use decimals. And after that, after we uh, write that in the terminal, it will scan it. And this whole function right here essentially assess whether the input is valid or not. So if the float that has been inputted for radius is not equals 1 or valid, then it will print an error message, which is the string invalid input, please enter a number. So for example, if you put in letters like A, B, C, or other symbols that are not numbers that are float, then it will say this error message in the console or terminal. And then this right here, while get char not equals /n, this essentially clears the input buffer to prevent an infinite loop. Because if we don't include this, then it will just keep printing out this error message. And of course, if it does not assess or receive an invalid input, else it will break, which means this infinite loop will break and it will continue to the next statement, which is the calculation of area and circumference of the circle, the goal of this entire program. And just basic maths, area equals pi, which is the constant we defined earlier. Area equals pi times radius. And then on the other hand, circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. Afterwards, after the calculation is done, the program will print the string for area, which will be area of the circle, is a number with 2 decimals after for the area. And then same thing for the circumference, it will print the string. Circumference of the circle is the float number with 2 decimals after using the circumference float. And then if the program is and then the program ends with return 0, which will essentially indicate successful execution, where no errors will show if this functions correctly. And I will just demonstrate to you by running the code and showing examples of different inputs. So let's run it. Here we go. Enter the radius of the circle. Let's, for example, put 7 as the radius. It will immediately show the area of the circle, which is 153.94, which is again 2 decimals after. shown because we defined it in this string right here. Same with the circumference, which for 7 as the radius shows 43.98. And now, for example, we run it again. And this time, let's use a decimal number. For example, 7.5. It will also work because we're using float. You can see the answers here. And then we'll also show what happens when you don't put a valid input. So no number, no decimal numbers. For example, we put the letter A here. It will just say the error message invalid input, plus enter a number. And now it will print again this string where it will tell us to enter the radius of the circle. So now if we put again, for example, another letter, it will just do the same thing over and over again until we put a valid input, which is a number. So let's say this time let's use 5. And now since that's a valid input, it will show the answers. And there you go. That's the code that I made to find the area and circumference of the circle. I think it's decently made, even though it's very simple. Though an improvement that could be made is to make sure maybe the number is also not a negative number, because that could possibly not work correctly. But yeah, otherwise, this has been the explanation for the code that I made for this first assignment. Thank you very much.